Thank you to USCIF and Lisa especially for your leadership and your guidance. And it's true that I was here 2 years ago, and you told me then that this massive increase, this massive trend of SRI and ESG investing in the U.S. Would continue. And since then, I saw at a glance that it's been up 33% in that period of time. I'm sure that's in no short measure to the great work of this organization and your leadership in particular. So let's give her a round of applause. So I'm the treasurer of the city of Chicago, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to a city that I think I'm a little bit biased, like Lisa, has the potential to be the greatest city in the world. I think Chicago is a pretty prime place to host a conversation that focuses especially on a new climate for investing with impact, because it's exactly what we're trying to create here in Chicago. But if we're going to be purposeful, impactful, and ultimately successful, this effort, and using Chicago as a bit of a pilot I'll share with you, takes our level best. As they used to say in my church growing up, I want your time, your treasure, and your talent. That's what it means to give your all. That's what I hope that we get to see in this renaissance, this new climate in Chicago. As a son of the city, a product of the city, someone who spent my whole life here and grew up on the South Side, a product of the public schools, I've seen what this place can offer a young kid who needs direction. And I've seen that opportunities to grow and develop and water our most precious assets, our most precious investments, our human capital. I've seen what can happen to those assets when that actually takes place. And so consistently throughout my career, whether in public or private sector, my purpose, my brand, my vision has always been to be consistent with that purpose in mind, to take the most out of our most precious asset, our human capital, and do everything we can, give all of our talents to help it flourish. During my time at Grosvenor Capital, just before I was the city treasurer, I was charged with helping support strategy and business development, but most importantly, creating the firm's investment fund that focused on diverse asset managers, hedge funds in particular. What I saw in that process was indicative of what we see in this market. I saw a 20-year track record of women-owned and women-run funds, minority-owned funds, outperforming the market in every strategy. Yet they were 3 or 4% of the capital. And I said, gee, this is odd to me. We're here to provide the best returns, not for portfolios in this case, but for people, for retirees, for firefighters, police, teachers. And for some reason, there was a disconnect. The market wasn't working. And as a result of that, we had to be the change to help not only provide for a better platform for return, but to make sure that we weren't missing elements of the most scarce resource, the most precious resource there is, which is the human capital. See, the way we thought about it was if 70% of the population here is represented by women, by people of color and underrepresented minorities, then that means that we're missing out on 70% of the possible ideas if we don't have real exposure to that capital, to that pool of talent. Our job ultimately is to bring the best ideas that will flourish and sustain and provide value as investors. In that period of time, if we can't find ways to seek out new ideas, be better, be inclusive in our search of factors that we know will have an impact or sources that will have an idea, then we haven't done our jobs. And I think that that experience and the growth that we saw, and the ability to attract capital and then ultimately generate outsized returns still kind of guides me today as I think about where we are in the market. In Chicago, what we've done to set the stage for this is we've fought to create a new fund that's going to invest locally. In fact, I think it was here 2 years ago, I said, I'm going to fight for as long as it takes. Well, it took 2 years. And it took 2 years for us to convince people that our strategies to invest in South America, in East Asia, South Asia, Western Europe, Africa, and the Middle East were fantastic. The mandates that we had there were appropriate. But why didn't we have a mandate to invest in the third largest market and the largest economy in the world, which happened to be our backyard? What was the bias that was keeping us from taking advantage of that opportunity? What ideas in our own backyard were we missing? And as a result of that, how were we not being and doing our level best for those teachers, for those firefighters, for those police officers, and for those in retirement? And after 2 years of making that case and generating 150% more revenue in our treasury portfolio to fund that case, we've finally been able to launch this year a new fund that we're seeding with the first $100 million, and we're raising $200 million of private capital, and its purpose is to make sure we don't miss out on great return, great investment opportunities in our own backyard. It's consistent with the premise of social impact. It's consistent with the premise of ESG factors, but the reality is it's consistent with us doing our best as investors to bring the best ideas, the best talent to the marketplace, because that's our job. Thank you. I don't know her, but I'm going to pay her well after this. So that's been the leading edge here, and it hasn't been an easy fight, as it hasn't been for many of you who inherently have heard, if you incorporate this into your strategy, you have to sacrifice return. If you're looking at these factors, what are you willing to give? And my take on it, and the reason why I support this work and support the people in this room and in this organization, is that's a false choice. That's a paradigm that I refuse to be forced in, and so do you. You can consider factors and still maintain your return expectations. In fact, most of us in this room would argue that because you have more information, because you've done a deeper dive, because you consider those variables, you are eliminating factors of risk that jeopardize that return. And in many ways, you are enhancing the opportunity for the portfolio and for your investors, which should be more attractive. This false narrative, this false choice, I think we've seen in this industry with your leadership, and you can certainly count on my advocacy, will come to an end. Will come to an end as our clients, as our investors, as the people who are ultimately our obligation as fiduciaries become more prosperous, have and receive greater returns. Ultimately, the paradigm will shift as the capital does. I'll leave you with this as I talked about things I learned in church: time, talent, and treasure. There also used to be a saying growing up about the golden rule. And you know, you guys learned the golden rule, especially in church. We learned it a little bit different in my church, which was he or she who has the gold makes the rules. They were trying to prepare us for life, because it's very true. And the reality is we are shifting the gold. We are shifting the rules. And it may take some people a little bit longer to get on the adoption curve, but we're going to make room for them when they come, because ultimately more capital against ideas that benefit society and are sustainable and have variables that decrease risk and enhance and protect your return are better for everyone. So when they're ready, we're just going to wave them in. In the meantime, we're going to get to work, and I'm here to help. Thank you.